This book contains names and stories of First Nations people who have passed on. At times, it also covers issues of a sensitive and traumatic nature. These are voluntarily shared by First Nations AA members active in recovery from alcoholism, using the 12 steps of AA and supporting others to do the same.
Chris's story. Hi, my name is Chris, and I am an alcoholic. My heritage is of both Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and my father is from England. I grew up in Cairns, Queensland. My upbringing was good, and I am the oldest of 3 boys. My parents drank, but always in moderation, and were highly religious. We were always provided with the means of everyday life: food, clothing, and shelter. When I was 4, I had my first taste of alcohol. Didn't know this until my mother told me when I was 15. Little did I know this was the beginning of my addictive personality. For some reason, I thought my parents' rules were like a straitjacket, restricting me. Little did I know, when I look back now, it was more of a seatbelt than straitjacket. At the age of 14, I started my first job as a paperboy. That was the year I decided I wanted to experience the big bad world. I would constantly argue with my parents, and they eventually kicked me out. I still went to school, but started working night as a kitchen hand. I moved from relative to relative. I was never satisfied with anything or anyone. I was so full of fear and resentment by this stage. I remember one day a schoolmate and I wagged school and went into town. By this stage I was wagging school more often and started to steal whatever I could get my hands on: bikes, CDs, tapes, electronics, and purses. On this day we walked past the liquor barn and my friend had looked there. 2 40-ounce bottles of Jim Beam sitting in the register counter and no one in sight. Bang, we ran in and grabbed them and took off. I remember taking them back to school and showing off to my friends. This was the start of the merry-go-round. We didn't drink the bottle straight away. We waited until that Friday night. I still remember my first shot. It tasted gross, but it got a warm, fuzzy feeling, something I never felt. So I had another and then started to mix it with Coke and ice. I was just drinking them like bloody water. I also remember thinking, what has everybody been hiding from me? I later became so ill I passed out. I remember coming to, laying in a bathtub with spew and a cold shower on. The next day I was so sick, but eager to continue associated with my new friend, King Alcohol. Cannabis was also introduced, so I drank and drunk for the next 26 years. By the year 2000, I found out I was a father and met my son, who was 3 years old at the time. I started a relationship with his mother, and we proceeded to have 4 more children. I was there for 2 of my children's births, but the last 2, I was so drunk I passed out. And this time DUI started happening. I lost my license 8 times for DUI, all with high readings, but I managed to stay out of jail, and finally, when in blackouts, I was starting to become homicidal and suicidal. I was constantly getting locked up and then back to the mental health unit. They would keep me in for 2 weeks, feed me up, get me in good physical health, release me, and then it was straight to the pub. This happened 4 times in a row. On my 5th visit, I was 12-stepped by an AA member who was a nurse in the unit. He told me his story, and I was baffled and amazed that he was 21 years sober. I so desperately wanted what he had, so I asked what I have to do. The first thing he asked was, "Do you believe in God?" I cringed. "Oh, not God." I thought I'd left all that behind me. But because I was desperate, I gave it a go. He then suggested that I start to pray, and when I leave the unit, to go to an AA meeting as soon as possible and purchase a big book. I left the unit 3 days later, and this time no pup. I went to my first meeting, living sober, Saturday night. Here I was scared and not knowing what to expect. There was another Murray there, Uncle Greg. All the men gave me their numbers, and I write as if I'm going to call you guys. I remember them suggesting to me to pick up the phone or picking up a drink. I laughed, but have now come to see that it really works. I eventually was able to get 9 months up, but unfortunately it picked up after an argument with my wife. I then became what some members call a serial relapser. I also like to add that I had a very caring and loving sponsor who never gave up on me. He is still my sponsor today. This behaviour went on for 2.5 years. I thought that I would never be able to get this program. My higher power had a better plan for me, and on October 11th, 2016, 2 days after my baby brother's 30th, I was so hungover, my son was going off at me, but I couldn't hear him. In this peace came over me and blurred out the noise. My higher power spoke to me and said, "That's enough, no more drinking." That was my first spiritual experience. I came back to the rooms of AA. For 3 years I just kept coming back. Mind you, I was still smoking Yandy, but not doing anything about the steps. Treating my sponsor like he was a bag, and so full of self-pity. The poor bugger, the attitude. My head was racing every day, so I took a heap of prescription medication and tried to kill myself. I came to staring at the ceiling, and an A&A. About 8 hours later, my first thought was, I'm still here. I remember sharing countless times at meetings about the near-death experiences I had while drinking, and an older sober member pulling me aside and saying, "Whoever your higher power is, he's looking after you." The next thought that came to my head was, "You better." Thinking, so I prayed for my heart. And so I said, saying, "Thank you, God, for saving me. What do I have to do?" This lesson came to me that night in another spiritual experience. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. The next day, I was moved out of the ward to a lower care facility. I phoned my sponsor and said, "I'm ready." We got together and we started going through the big book, the first 164 pages, and he took me through the steps, like the chapter says, into action. I got straight into action. I got 100, started being of maximum service to God and my fellow humans. I read my daily reflections, a Bible verse, and page 86 on awakening every morning. This was the 22nd of July 2019, and I've been clean and sober since. Like Dr. Bob says in 6 simple words, trust God, clean house, help others. When I practice these principles in all my affairs, life is good. I do all the suggested things. Why? Because I like to stay in fit spiritual condition. Like the old timer says, you don't get AA, AA will get you, and it works if you work it. Chris Gaines, Queensland.